This is the story I never believed I would live to tell. A tale of a civilization that vanished beneath the churning waters of the Meridian Deep, off the coast of the Serpentine Archipelago. For centuries, whispers of this lost realm had echoed through academic halls and maritime legends, dismissed as fantasy by serious scholars. But the truth of Atlantis was hidden not just in the abyss of time, but in the hearts of those who knew what really happened. My name is Dr. Marcus Thornfield, marine archaeologist and reluctant seeker of impossible truths. The story began on a rain-soaked evening in November 2016, when I received a package that would shatter everything I thought I knew about human history. The heavy wooden crate crashed through my office window at Meridian University, shattering glass across my desk. No delivery truck, no courier, just the sound of splintering wood and scattered papers flying through the rain-soaked night air. Inside lay a weathered leather portfolio containing documents that defied explanation. The papers were aged, yet their preservation was unnaturally perfect. Most disturbing was the letter that accompanied them, written in an elegant script and dated 1897. The anonymous author claimed that deep beneath the Meridian Deep, near the volcanic ridges of the Serpentine Archipelago, lay the remnants of Atlantis, a civilization that possessed knowledge far beyond anything recorded in human history. The letter contained precise coordinates, a complex cipher that seemed to shift when I wasn't looking directly at it, and references to ancient manuscripts supposedly hidden in the abandoned Blackmere Library in Edinburgh. But what made my hands tremble was the warning scrawled in what appeared to be fresh blood at the bottom. Beware the awakening protocol. Some doors were sealed for good reason. The rational part of my mind screamed hoax. Yet something about those coordinates burned into my memory like a brand. They pointed to a region where several research vessels had reported unusual sonar readings over the past decade, anomalies that oceanographers couldn't explain and refused to discuss publicly. Sleep became impossible. I spent the following weeks diving into every archive I could access, breaking into restricted databases, bribing librarians, and following paper trails that led to dead ends and sealed records. Cross-referencing ancient texts with modern geological surveys, I discovered disturbing patterns that made my academic colleagues avoid me. Medieval manuscripts from monasteries across northern Europe contained fragmentary references to a sunken realm beyond the Sunset Islands. More intriguingly, several independent sources mentioned a great submersion that occurred roughly 4,000 years ago, always accompanied by descriptions of lights that fell from heaven and waters that boiled with unnatural fire. The breakthrough came when I managed to access the restricted archives of the Blackmere Library through a contact who preferred to remain nameless. Hidden in a forgotten vault beneath the building's foundation, I found documents that shouldn't have existed, maps drawn by cartographers who died centuries before the New World was discovered. Yet these maps showed underwater formations that matched modern bathymetric surveys with impossible accuracy. One manuscript, attributed to a Byzantine scholar named Constantinos, the Navigator, contained detailed descriptions of architectural marvels beneath the waves. His account spoke of crystal spires that pierced the darkness like frozen lightning, and temples where the old gods still whisper their secrets to those brave enough to listen. But the most chilling discovery was a margin note in Constantinos' own hand. They are not gone. They wait. They watch. They remember when the stars were young. The evidence was too compelling to ignore, too dangerous to pursue alone. I assembled a carefully selected team of specialists, each sworn to secrecy through means that went far beyond simple contracts. Dr. Elena Vasquez, our lead marine archaeologist, brought expertise in underwater excavation techniques, and a reputation for discretion that bordered on paranoia. Professor James Kirkland, a linguist specializing in dead languages, had been quietly translating forbidden text for private collectors for decades. Dr. Sarah Chen, our marine biologist, could analyze the ecosystem changes around any ruins we discovered, and had already begun experiencing the strange dreams that seemed to plague anyone who studied the coordinates too closely. Our technical specialist, Mikhail Petrov, secured funding through a network of private investors who preferred to remain anonymous. The money appeared in unmarked accounts, with no paper trail, accompanied by equipment that officially didn't exist. They provided us with the research vessel, Poseidon's Grace, equipped with cutting-edge submersible technology and deep-sea exploration gear that made military installations jealous. As we prepared for departure from the port of Raven's Hollow, the feeling of being watched became overwhelming. Several team members reported strange encounters, phone calls with no one on the other end, but the sound of deep ocean currents, shadows that moved independently of their sources, and the sensation of being followed through city streets by figures that vanished when confronted directly. Dr. Vasquez found a dead seagull on her doorstep every morning for a week, each one arranged in increasingly complex geometric patterns. Professor Kirkland's apartment was broken into 3 times, yet nothing was stolen, and each intrusion left behind symbols carved into his furniture that matched inscriptions from the Byzantine manuscript. The journey to the Serpentine Archipelago took 8 days, through increasingly treacherous waters that seemed to resist our passage. The closer we got to our destination, the more unstable the weather became. Violent storms materialized from clear skies, as if the ocean itself was trying to warn us away or test our determination. Our navigational equipment began malfunctioning on the 4th day. Compasses spun widely, GPS coordinates shifted without explanation, and radio communications filled with static that sounded almost like voices speaking in unknown languages. The crew grew increasingly nervous as temperatures dropped despite our southern heading. On the 6th night, during a particularly fierce tempest that threatened to tear our vessel apart, something extraordinary happened. Dr. Chen was on deck, taking readings, when she called out in amazement that cut through the howling wind. Through the chaos of rain and lightning, a soft phosphorescent glow was emanating from beneath the waves, pulsing in regular intervals, like a massive heartbeat. "It's not bioluminescence," she reported, her voice tight with excitement and terror. "The wavelength is all wrong. This is something else entirely, something that's responding to our presence." The glow lasted only minutes, but it confirmed what we all secretly hoped and feared. We were approaching something that defied conventional explanation, something that was aware of our approach and perhaps welcoming us into its ancient embrace. When we reached the coordinates from the mysterious letter, our sonar equipment immediately detected massive structures on the ocean floor, nearly 3 miles down. The shapes were too geometric, too purposeful to be natural formations. But what made us all fall silent was the realization that these structures were larger than any ancient city ever discovered, stretching across the abyssal plain like a drowned metropolis. Our first submersible dive was scheduled for dawn. Dr. Vasquez, Professor Kirkland, and I descended in the Deep Explorer, our most advanced submersible, while the rest of the team monitored from above through increasingly unstable communication links. The descent through the midnight zone was routine until we reached 2 miles depth. That's when our lights first illuminated the impossible. Massive columns rose from the abyssal plain, carved from what appeared to be a single piece of dark stone. But as we drew closer, we realized it wasn't stone at all. The material had a subtle luminescence, as if it contained trapped starlight from civilizations that died before Earth was born. Intricate patterns covered every surface, designs that seemed to shift and flow when observed directly, creating optical illusions that made our eyes water and our heads spin. "My God," Professor Kirkland whispered over the comm, his voice breaking with awe and terror. "These aren't random decorations, they're mathematical equations, but the symbolic system is unlike anything in human history. It's as if they're showing us the fundamental structure of reality itself." Dr. Vasquez was already taking detailed photographs and measurements, her hands shaking as she worked. "The craftsmanship is impossible for any known civilization. Look at these joints, Marcus. No gaps, no mortar, no tool marks. It's as if these blocks were grown rather than carved, shaped by forces we can't comprehend." As we explored deeper into the ruins, we encountered increasingly complex architecture that challenged our understanding of physics and engineering, spiraling towers that defied structural engineering principles, their surfaces covered in windows that showed not darkness but distant stars, bridges that spanned impossible distances without visible support, their undersides inscribed with formulas that hurt our minds to contemplate. And at the center of it all, a massive circular structure that dominated the seafloor, like a sleeping giant waiting for the right moment to awaken. The portal, as we came to call it, was covered in symbols that seemed to move when we weren't looking directly at them. Professor Kirkland spent hours studying them through the submersible's cameras, growing more agitated with each passing minute as the implications of what he was seeing became clear. These inscriptions, they're not just decorative, they're instructions or warnings. I'm seeing patterns that suggest this is some kind of control mechanism, but for what I can't determine. But Marcus, these symbols, they're describing technologies that we haven't even dreamed of yet. Dr. Vasquez had been scanning the portal with our ground-penetrating sonar. There's a massive hollow space behind this wall. It extends down into the earth for at least half a mile. But here's the terrifying part. There are geometric structures inside that space. Perfect geometric structures that are still active, still drawing power from some unknown source. The implications were staggering. We weren't just looking at the ruins of an ancient city. We were looking at technology that modern science couldn't explain. A machine the size of a mountain that had been waiting beneath the waves for someone to find it. Over the following days, we made discovery after discovery that challenged everything we thought we knew about human development and our place in the universe. Tools made from materials that shouldn't exist, according to our periodic table. Art depicting technologies that wouldn't be invented for thousands of years, if ever, and everywhere. Those mathematical inscriptions that Professor Kirkland was slowly beginning to decode with increasing horror. "It's a language based on quantum principles," he explained during one of our evening briefings, his face pale and drawn from sleepless nights spent wrestling with concepts that human minds weren't designed to process. They understood aspects about the nature of reality that we're only beginning to glimpse. But Marcus, some of these inscriptions are warnings. They're telling us to stay away, to leave this place undisturbed. Dr. Chen had been analyzing samples of the strange phosphorescent water around the ruins. Her findings were equally disturbing and fascinating. The water contains microscopic organisms that don't match any known species. They seem to be artificial, engineered for a specific purpose, and they're still active after thousands of years, still following programming that we can't begin to understand. But it was our technical specialist, Mikhail, who made the most unsettling discovery. While analyzing the energy readings from the portal, he detected patterns that suggested the structure was not only still operational, but was responding to our presence. "It's drawing power from somewhere," he reported, his face pale with exhaustion and growing fear. "The entire complex is like a massive machine in standby mode, and I think our presence here is beginning to wake it up. The energy output has increased by 30% since we arrived." On our 10th day at the site, everything changed in ways that would haunt our nightmares for years to come. Dr. Vasquez was conducting a routine dive when she reported seeing lights moving through the ruins, lights that couldn't be explained by our equipment or any known natural phenomena. "They're not random," she transmitted, her voice strained with barely controlled panic. "The lights are following patterns, like they're searching for something or someone, and they're getting closer to the submersible." When she returned to the surface, she brought with her artifacts that defied explanation and challenged our sanity. Stone tablets covered in inscriptions that seemed to rearrange themselves when no one was looking directly at them. Crystalline objects that emitted soft harmonics when exposed to certain electromagnetic frequencies, creating music that sounded like the songs of dying stars. But most disturbing were the images she captured on her camera. Shadows moving through the ruins, shadows with no source and impossible geometries, and in the background of several photos, what appeared to be figures watching from the darkness beyond our lights, figures that seemed to exist in dimensions our cameras could barely perceive. Professor Kirkland's translation of the tablets revealed the truth we had been dreading. The civilization of Atlantis hadn't simply vanished into history. They had made a choice, a terrible choice, born of desperate necessity. "They discovered something," he explained, his hands shaking as he held the translated text. "Some fundamental truth about reality that was too dangerous to share with the universe. So they sealed themselves away, became guardians of knowledge that could reshape or destroy not just our world, but existence itself. Our communications with the surface began experiencing interference that grew worse by the hour. Radio signals were scrambled by an unknown source that seemed to be learning our communication patterns. GPS readings became not just unreliable, but actively misleading, showing locations that couldn't exist. Most concerning, our crew reported strange dreams that were too similar to be coincidental. Visions of vast underwater cities filled with beings of impossible beauty and terrible purpose. Dreams of swimming through liquid starlight, while voices whispered secrets that burned the mind to comprehend. Everyone reported the same recurring nightmare, standing before the portal while it opened to reveal not darkness, but an infinite space filled with watching eyes. Dr. Chen's biological samples started exhibiting properties that violated everything we knew about life. The microscopic organisms were multiplying, forming complex patterns that resembled circuit boards more than biological structures. When she placed them under specific light conditions, they would emit the same phosphorescent glow we had seen during the storm, and the glow would pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. "They're not just random organisms," she reported during an emergency meeting, her voice barely above a whisper. "They're components of some larger system. And I think that system is trying to reassemble itself, using us as the missing pieces." Mikhail's energy readings confirmed our worst fears. The portal was drawing more power with each passing day. The geometric structures Professor Kirkland had identified were beginning to show signs of activation. And worst of all, the energy signature was beginning to match our own biological, electromagnetic patterns. "We need to leave," he insisted during one particularly tense briefing, his technical expertise overwhelmed by growing terror. "Whatever we've awakened here, it's beyond our ability to control or understand. and I don't think it's gonna let us leave unchanged. But leaving wasn't an option, not after what we discovered in the deepest chamber beneath the portal. Using a specially modified submersible that pushed our technology to its absolute limits, Dr. Vasquez and I descended into the heart of the complex, guided by the pulsing lights that had become our constant and increasingly insistent companions. The chamber was vast beyond description, its walls covered in murals that depicted the history of Atlantis with stunning clarity that made our eyes burn to look upon. We saw a civilization that had mastered energy sources we couldn't comprehend, technology that blurred the line between science and what ancient peoples might have called magic, achievements that made our greatest scientific breakthroughs look like cave paintings. But the final murals told a darker story that filled us with existential dread. The Atlanteans had discovered something in the depths of space, a presence that was both ancient beyond measure and malevolent beyond description. Their advanced knowledge had attracted the attention of forces that existed beyond the boundaries of normal reality, entities that regarded entire galaxies as momentary diversions. Rather than risk exposing the universe to this influence, the Atlanteans made the ultimate sacrifice. They used their technology to create a barrier, sealing both themselves and the cosmic threat beneath the waves. The portal wasn't just a doorway, it was the lock that kept something terrible at bay, something that could unravel the fabric of existence itself. In the center of the chamber stood a single figure, perfectly preserved in some kind of crystalline matrix that pulsed with inner light. As we approached, its eyes opened, revealing an intelligence that had been waiting for millennia and recognized us with terrifying familiarity. The being communicated, not through words, but through direct transmission of concepts and images that flooded our minds with knowledge we weren't prepared to receive. I learned that this was Valdor Thyssen, the last guardian of the sealed realm. He had volunteered to remain conscious through the centuries, watching for signs that the barrier might fail and for suitable successors to take up the burden. Through him, I understood the true purpose of our discovery, the mysterious letter, the perfectly preserved documents, even our successful navigation of the ancient defenses. It had all been orchestrated. The Guardians needed successors, humans who could take up the watch as their power finally began to wane. After thousands of years of constant vigilance, the choice is yours. Valdor's mental voice carried the weight of ages and the wisdom of terrible sacrifice, knowledge that could advance your species by thousands of years, but at the cost of eternal vigilance against forces that exist beyond comprehension. Accept the burden, or watch as the barriers fail, and cosmic chaos consumes everything you hold dear. The weight of the decision crashed down on us, like the pressure of the deep ocean itself. To accept meant abandoning our normal lives, our families, our humanity in some fundamental sense. To refuse might mean the end of existence as we knew it. We spent 3 more days in communion with Valdor, learning the true history of his people and the cosmic threat they had contained. The knowledge was overwhelming, concepts that stretched human understanding to its breaking point. And beyond, we learned of entities that existed between dimensions, of technologies that could reshape reality at the quantum level, and of the delicate balance that kept our universe stable. When we finally returned to the surface, we were no longer the same people who had descended into the depths. Each of us carried a piece of the Guardian's knowledge, and with it, the terrible responsibility of keeping ancient secrets that could drive lesser minds to madness. The artifacts we brought back defied analysis by conventional science in ways that made our colleagues question their own sanity. Carbon dating produced impossible results, showing ages that predated the formation of Earth itself. Spectrographic analysis revealed elements that didn't exist on the periodic table and shouldn't be able to exist in stable form. And always there was the subtle sense that the objects were somehow aware, watching, waiting for the right moment to reveal their true nature. Professor Kirkland was the first to crack under the weight of the revelation. His brilliant mind pushed beyond its limits by knowledge no human was meant to possess. Within weeks of our return, he had sequestered himself in his study, working feverishly to decode the remaining inscriptions, while his sanity slowly unraveled. When colleagues tried to check on him, they found his office filled with complex mathematical equations covering every available surface, formulas that seemed to move and change when observed from different angles. The equations described the fundamental structure of reality in ways that made Nobel Prize-winning physicists weep with incomprehension. The patterns, he would mutter to anyone who would listen, his eyes wild with knowledge that burned like acid in his mind. They're showing me the structure of reality itself, but there are gaps, missing pieces that were deliberately removed to prevent total understanding. We're seeing only fragments of a truth so vast it could shatter the universe, if fully comprehended. Dr. Chen's research took a different and equally disturbing turn. The biological samples from Atlantis began responding to her presence in ways that defied scientific explanation and challenged the very definition of life itself. Plants would grow at accelerated rates when she was near, their cellular structure becoming more complex and organized. Animals seemed to understand her intentions before she acted on them, displaying intelligence levels far beyond their species' normal capacity. "It's like the organisms are rewriting my DNA," she confided during one of our private meetings, her voice filled with wonder and terror in equal measure. "I'm becoming something more than human, but I'm not sure if that's evolution or infection. The line between enhancement and transformation is becoming increasingly blurred." Within months of our return, we began receiving visits from representatives of various organizations that preferred to remain unnamed and operated with authority that transcended national boundaries. Government agencies whose official existence was classified, private foundations with unlimited resources and no public records, religious groups that claimed to have been waiting for our discoveries for centuries. The message was always the same, delivered with polite threats and generous incentives. Some knowledge was too dangerous for public consumption. The world wasn't ready for proof that humanity wasn't alone in the universe, or that there were forces that could render all human achievement meaningless in an instant. Dr. Vasquez was approached by a group calling themselves the Historical Preservation Society. They offered her unlimited funding for future expeditions, with the understanding that certain discoveries would remain classified indefinitely, and that she would serve as a gatekeeper for information too dangerous for public consumption. They knew, she told me, after the meeting, her face pale with the realization of how deep the conspiracy ran. They knew about Atlantis long before we did. Our expedition wasn't a discovery. It was a recruitment test. We were being evaluated for our potential as guardians long before we ever set foot on that ship. As the months passed, the influence of our Atlantean exposure began manifesting in unexpected and increasingly dramatic ways. Each team member developed abilities that bordered on the supernatural, changes that set us apart from normal humanity in ways that were impossible to hide. Mikhail found he could sense electromagnetic fields with unprecedented precision, predicting equipment failures days before they occurred, and detecting electronic surveillance from miles away. Professor Kirkland began demonstrating an intuitive understanding of languages he had never studied, translating ancient texts in real time, as if the knowledge was being downloaded directly into his consciousness. My own changes were more subtle, but equally disturbing. I could feel the pulse of the ancient machines beneath the waves, even from thousands of miles away. The connection grew stronger each day, until sometimes I could sense the thoughts and emotions of my fellow guardians, regardless of distance. Most unsettling was the growing awareness that we were all part of something larger, a network of consciousness that spanned the globe. The artifacts we had retrieved began exhibiting new properties that defied all rational explanation. The stone tablets would occasionally display messages in modern languages, always warnings about cosmic events that hadn't yet occurred, but invariably proved accurate. The crystalline objects started resonating with each other, creating harmonics that seemed to open doorways in the air itself, briefly revealing glimpses of other dimensions where the laws of physics operated differently. Gradually, we realized we weren't alone in our experience, that our transformation was part of a much larger pattern. Other archaeological expeditions around the world had encountered similar anomalies, discoveries that were being suppressed or explained away by authorities who understood far more than they were willing to admit. Ancient ruins in the Amazon showed signs of impossible technology that matched what we had found in Atlantis. Underwater structures off the coast of Japan exhibited the same mathematical patterns we had discovered, and the researchers who found them reported the same strange dreams and progressive enhancement of human capabilities. A network of modern guardians was forming, connected by shared exposure to knowledge that human minds weren't designed to contain. We communicated through encrypted channels that seemed to operate on principles beyond current technology, sharing discoveries and coordinating responses to increasingly frequent anomalous events. Dr. Sarah Martinez, an archaeologist from Barcelona, reported finding inscriptions in the Pyrenees that matched our Atlantean samples exactly. The civilization was global, she concluded during one of our secure video conferences, her enhanced intellect making connections that would have taken normal researchers decades to discover. They didn't just seal one threat beneath the ocean, they created a worldwide containment grid, a network of barriers that has been protecting reality itself for thousands of years. 2 years after our initial discovery, the signs became impossible to ignore for those with the enhanced perception to see them. Seismic activity increased along oceanic fault lines that corresponded to guardian sites with mathematical precision. Marine life began exhibiting unusual migration patterns, as if responding to signals emanating from the deep that only they could hear. Most concerning were the reports from deep-sea research stations and military installations worldwide. Automated sensors were detecting energy signatures that matched no known natural phenomena, readings that suggested fundamental changes in the structure of reality itself. The ancient containment systems were beginning to fail after millennia of faithful service, and the entities they held back were testing their bonds. Baldor's communications became more frequent and urgent. His messages transmitted through dreams and visions that left us exhausted and terrified. Through our shared connection, he conveyed images of cosmic entities stirring in spaces between dimensions, drawn by the weakening barriers that had kept them at bay for thousands of years. The cycle approaches completion. His mental voice carried undertones of resignation and determination that chilled us to the bone. The guardians must choose, maintain the barriers, and accept the gradual weakening of containment, or release controlled portions of the sealed knowledge to prepare humanity for what is coming. The choice must be made soon, for the watchers in the void grow impatient. The modern Guardian Network convened in secret at a research facility in neutral international waters, a meeting that brought together representatives from 12 different archaeological sites around the globe. Each attendee bore artifacts and knowledge that defied conventional understanding, proof that the Atlantean legacy extended far beyond what we had initially discovered. The debate was intense and painful, conducted in languages that hadn't existed before our enhancement, and dealing with concepts that pushed human communication to its limits. Some argued for full disclosure, believing that humanity deserved to know the truth about its place in the cosmic hierarchy and the forces that shaped its destiny. Others insisted that the ancient barriers must be maintained at all costs, even if it meant sacrificing individual freedom for species survival. The knowledge we possessed was too dangerous, too potentially destructive to be shared with a species that still fought wars over resources and ideology. Dr. Chen presented her biological research, demonstrating how exposure to Atlantean organisms had enhanced human cognitive and physical capabilities beyond anything previously recorded. We're looking at the next stage of human evolution, she argued, her enhanced intellect making connections at superhuman speed. But it requires accepting knowledge that most people would consider impossible or terrifying. The question is whether humanity is ready for forced evolution or if gradual change is the safer path. Professor Kirkland countered with translations of the most dire warnings from the ancient texts, his voice heavy with the weight of cosmic truth. The Atlanteans tried to use their enhanced abilities to negotiate with cosmic forces beyond their comprehension. The result was near extinction for their entire species, and the creation of barriers that have held for thousands of years. Are we arrogant enough to believe we can succeed where they failed? After days of deliberation that pushed our enhanced minds to their limits, we reached a compromise that satisfied no one completely, but offered the best chance for species survival. The Guardian Network would work to gradually prepare humanity for the coming challenges, while maintaining the essential containment barriers that kept cosmic chaos at bay. Selected individuals would be exposed to controlled amounts of Atlantean knowledge, creating a cadre of enhanced humans capable of dealing with threats that normal humans couldn't perceive or understand. Meanwhile, the general population would be slowly conditioned through carefully released information disguised as science fiction or speculative research. The plan required sacrifices from all of us that would fundamentally alter our relationship with humanity. We would remain in the shadows, guiding human development without revealing the true reasons for our actions. Our families and friends would never understand why we had changed so dramatically, why we seemed to carry the weight of invisible burdens that grew heavier with each passing day. But the alternative was unthinkable: the complete collapse of the barriers and the release of entities that could unravel reality itself on a whim. 5 years have passed since our first descent into the ruins of Atlantis. 5 years of constant vigilance and growing understanding of the cosmic forces that shape existence. The Guardian Network has grown to include over 200 individuals worldwide, each maintaining their public careers, while secretly working to prepare humanity for revelations that could reshape civilization overnight. The containment barriers continue to weaken, but at a controlled rate that allows us to manage the release of dangerous knowledge. We've learned to channel small amounts of the sealed energy into beneficial applications. Advances in medicine and technology that appear to emerge from normal human research, but actually derive from ancient Atlantean principles. Sometimes I wonder if we made the right choice, if the path we've chosen serves humanity's best interests, or merely our own fear of change. The knowledge we carry could solve most of humanity's problems overnight. Clean energy that would make fossil fuels obsolete, medical treatments that could extend lifespans indefinitely, technologies that could make scarcity and want things of the past. But it would also open doors that might be better left closed, invite the attention of cosmic forces that regard human concerns as insignificant as we regard the concerns of insects. Dr. Vasquez continues her deep-sea expeditions, mapping the extent of the global containment grid with equipment that officially doesn't exist. She's identified 17 major sites and dozens of smaller installations, all maintained by Guardian descendants who have kept the vigil across generations without recognition or reward. Professor Kirkland has established a foundation that studies theoretical archaeology, using legitimate academic research to hide his continued work on Atlantean translations. His latest findings suggest that the cosmic entities aren't malevolent in any human sense. They simply exist at a scale that makes human concerns irrelevant, like forces of nature that reshape reality without malice or mercy. The most challenging aspect of our work involves identifying and training new guardians without revealing the full scope of what we're preparing them for. The enhanced abilities that come with exposure to Atlantean knowledge can't be inherited directly, but certain genetic markers seem to indicate compatibility with the transformation process. We've established discrete testing protocols embedded within standard psychological and medical evaluations at universities and research institutions worldwide. Individuals who demonstrate the right combination of intellectual capacity, emotional stability, and ethical foundation are gradually introduced to the truth through carefully controlled exposure. The process is dangerous and sometimes fatal. Not everyone can integrate the knowledge without psychological consequences that range from temporary disorientation to complete mental breakdown. We've lost 3 potential recruits to conditions that psychiatrists classify as elaborate delusion systems, never suspecting that the patients were actually struggling to process cosmic truths that human minds weren't designed to comprehend. Each loss weighs heavily on us, a reminder that the power we wield comes with responsibilities that extend far beyond personal survival. Living with guardian knowledge changes everything about how you perceive existence and humanity's place in the cosmic order. The concerns that once seemed important, career advancement, social status, material possessions, become laughably trivial when viewed against the backdrop of cosmic forces that could reshape reality with casual indifference. Yet, paradoxically, this perspective makes human connections more precious than ever before. Knowing that consciousness itself is rare and fragile in a universe dominated by indifferent physics makes every moment of genuine communication feel like a miracle worth protecting at any cost. I've learned to find meaning in small actions that protect the ignorant innocence of ordinary people. Every day that humanity continues its normal struggles with love, loss, ambition, and hope is a victory against forces that would render such concerns meaningless. Every laugh, every tear, every moment of human connection is a defiance of cosmic indifference. One of the most unsettling aspects of our work is the growing sense that we ourselves are being observed by intelligences that operate on scales we can barely comprehend, not by human agencies, though they continue their surveillance with increasing sophistication, but by cosmic entities that exist at the boundaries of our enhanced perception. Sometimes during deep meditation, or when working with Atlantean artifacts, we catch glimpses of vast consciousnesses that regard our efforts with what might be amusement or approval. These entities seem to exist in the spaces between dimensions, patient observers of the cosmic drama playing out across multiple realities simultaneously. Valdor has confirmed our suspicions with information that challenges our understanding of free will itself. The Guardians were always part of a larger pattern. His mental voice carries undertones of ancient humor tinged with cosmic irony. You think you chose this path, but choice itself may be an illusion when viewed from sufficient temporal distance. The pattern shapes itself, and conscious beings merely follow the paths already laid out in the fabric of space-time. Recent astronomical observations have detected anomalies that correspond to our most dire predictions with terrifying accuracy. Deep space telescopes are registering energy signatures that match theoretical models for interdimensional incursions, patterns that suggest the barriers between realities are weakening at an accelerating rate. The Guardian Network has activated emergency protocols developed over years of careful planning, Enhanced humans are being positioned in key locations around the globe, ready to respond to manifestations that normal human authorities couldn't understand, much less contain. Government agencies are being quietly briefed on procedures for dealing with events that officially can't happen. Dr. Chen's biological research has reached a breakthrough point that could change everything. She believes she can accelerate the enhancement process, creating guardian-level abilities in properly prepared individuals within months rather than years. The knowledge could be crucial if we face a crisis that requires rapid deployment of enhanced personnel, but acceleration comes with risks that keep us awake at night. The slow transformation process allows gradual integration of cosmic knowledge without overwhelming the human psyche. Forced enhancement might create beings with guardian abilities, but without the wisdom and ethical foundation necessary to use them responsibly, potentially creating threats as dangerous as the ones we're trying to contain. Public awareness of anomalous phenomena is increasing despite our efforts at controlled disclosure and media manipulation. Social media platforms carry thousands of reports about strange energy signatures, impossible archaeological discoveries, and encounters with beings that don't fit any known biological categories. Government agencies are struggling to maintain plausible explanations for events that defy conventional understanding. Military installations report equipment failures that correspond to surges in cosmic background radiation. Scientific instruments record phenomena that violate established physical laws, and the number of witnesses is becoming too large to silence or discredit. The time may be approaching when full disclosure becomes inevitable, when humanity must confront the cosmic truth, regardless of its readiness. The barriers that have protected normal people from knowledge too dangerous to comprehend are weakening along with the containment systems they were designed to support. We've prepared contingency plans for various revelation scenarios, procedures that balance the need for truth with the requirement for social stability. If the barriers fail catastrophically, the Guardian Network will implement emergency protocols designed to maintain civilization during the transition period. If disclosure happens gradually, we'll guide public understanding to minimize panic and social disruption. As I write this account, I can feel Valdor's presence more strongly than ever before, his consciousness reaching across the dimensions that separate us. The ancient Guardian's crystalline matrix is beginning to destabilize after millennia of faithful service, his body finally succumbing to the passage of time that he has held at bay through sheer force of will. Through our connection, he shares fragments of the deeper knowledge that even we Guardians haven't been permitted to access. Visions of universes beyond counting, consciousnesses that exist as living galaxies, and the role that small biological entities like humans might play in cosmic evolution that spans scales of time and space beyond imagination.